U.S. Joining me now to talk about what these voter trends might mean in the U.S. and much more is Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders. Senator Sanders, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Let's start with this week's historic Brexit vote. Do you think some of the forces that caused the UK to vote the way that voters there did, resentment towards elites, resentment toward trade deals, do you think that some of those same forces have been fueling your campaign here in the United States?
Well, look, I think there is massive resentment throughout Europe, in the UK, and in the United States about a global economy which works very, very well for large multinational corporations who are able to shut down in this country and go to China and Mexico and hire people there for very low wages. But it's a global economy that is not working in many ways for the middle class or working families of this country. Jake, I visited 46 states throughout this campaign. I talked to the workers who saw their jobs go abroad. I talked to workers who are working longer hours for low wages, people who are worried to death about the future of this country and what happens to their kids. So the question is, with all of the increase in technology and productivity and all of this great global economy, why is it that the middle class continues to shrink? The gap between the very, very rich and everybody else goes wider and wider, and we got 47 million people in this country living in poverty. What ordinary people are saying is, hey, give us an economy that works for all of us and not just the people on top. And I think that is, to a significant degree, what this Brexit vote was about.
Donald Trump, I know you disagree with him on a lot, but you do have some overlap when it comes to talking about the elites in Washington and opposition to trade deals. Mr. Trump says he sees a great parallel between the Brexit vote and his own campaign. Does it give you any moment of pause and alarm you about the possibility that Mr. Trump might win in November?
No, I don't think Mr. Trump is going to win, because I think the American people understand that it's absurd for a billionaire to be campaigning on giving hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks to billionaire families like his own. The American people understand what Trump does not understand, that climate change is very, very real, that it threatens our country in the entire world, that Mr. Trump is not right when he tells us what every scientist in the world acknowledges: climate change is real, and we have to transform our energy system. And most importantly, after all of the decades and decades and centuries of struggle that we have had in this country to combat discrimination, whether it is race or whether it is gender, to have a candidate for president going around insulting Mexicans and Latinos and Muslims and women and African Americans, that is not the candidate that the American people are going to support in November.
One of the things that you and your team has been focused on right now is working within the Democratic Party to hammer out the Democratic National Platform this week. Now, your views were not accommodated when it came to the Pacific Trade Deal, Israel and the West Bank, a ban on fracking, a carbon tax, or replacing private insurance with Medicare for all. But you did have a lot of victories in these battles, the party moving in your direction on a number of significant issues, including breaking up the big banks, a $15 an hour minimum wage, ending the death penalty, imposing a multi-millionaire surtax, expanding Social Security, shutting down private prisons, and on and on. Are you ready to declare victory, embrace the platform, and endorse Hillary Clinton as a nominee?
I think you're right, Jake. I think you captured exactly what happened in St. Louis the other day. We won some very, very important victories in our effort to try to make it clear to the American people that the Democratic Party stands with the middle class, stands with working families, and is prepared to take on Wall Street and the big money interest. But we lost some very important fights. We're going to take that fight to Orlando, where the entire committee meets in 2 weeks. And if we don't succeed there, we're certainly going to take it to the floor of the Democratic Convention. And that is what this discussion in St. Louis did not include, as you indicated, the need to deal in a very strong way with the crisis of climate change. We need a tax on carbon. We need to end fracking. We need to be very, very clear that the minimum wage must be raised to $15 an hour. In my view, we need a Medicare for all single-payer program. So we have made some good gains, and I want to thank all of the people who participated in that process. We have more to do.
Senator, you've said you want to do everything in your power to ensure that Donald Trump does not become president. According to a new Bloomberg poll, barely half of your supporters, 55%, plan to vote for Hillary Clinton. 22% say they'll vote for Donald Trump. Another 18% favor Libertarian candidate Gary Johnson. Do you think Hillary Clinton can win if almost half of your supporters do not plan on voting for her?
You know, we got a long, long way to go to Election Day. And the world changes, as you know, every week. What I think is that if Hillary Clinton, and this is what we are trying to do right now, we are trying to say to Secretary Clinton and to the Clinton campaign, make it clear which side you are on. For example, one of the areas that I think resonated very strongly across this country is the understanding that today in 2016, we need to make public education include free tuition at public colleges and universities. Truth is, Secretary Clinton has some good ideas about higher education, doesn't go far enough. In terms of health care, it is not good enough to say that 90% of our people have health insurance now, because many of those insurance policies are really quite inadequate. We need to be much more aggressive. The Affordable Care Act has done good things. We need to go further than that. So I think right now what we are doing is trying to say to the Clinton campaign, stand up, be bolder than you have been, and then many of those voters, in fact, may come on board.
Listen to what you said on Friday when you were asked if you will vote for Hillary Clinton in November.
Are you going to vote for Hillary Clinton in November?
Yes.
When the day comes in November and Sanders has to cast his vote, to whom does it go?
In all likelihood, it will go to Hillary Clinton.
In all likelihood, it will go to Hillary Clinton. Now, I know you told Chris Cuomo when he pressed that you don't want to get into semantics, but when your supporters hear you say that in all likelihood your vote will go to Hillary Clinton, do you think they come away thinking that maybe you'll run as a third-party candidate, maybe it's not that important to you whether or not she wins? I mean, there's a hesitation there.
Well, look, Jake, I think media focuses on politics as a game. What we are talking about and what this whole campaign is about is transforming the United States, dealing with the issues that led to Brexit, understanding why the middle class continues to decline and the top 0.1% now owns as much wealth as the bottom 90%. Making sure that we address the fact that 47 million people live in poverty and the kids can't afford to go to college. That is what this campaign is about. And what we are doing right now, by the way, is by the many, many thousands, engaging people, working people, young people to get involved in the political process and to run for office. We're trying to build a strong, progressive political movement which takes on big money interests and which over a period of time, in fact, creates a government that works for all of us and not just the 1%. That is my focus right now. Defeating Donald Trump is clearly my other focus.
With all due respect, Senator, I'm not viewing this as a game. I'm looking at the fact that I talk to your supporters all the time, and many of them do not want to vote for Hillary Clinton. They feel very negatively towards her. And if it is important to you, as you say it is, to defeat Donald Trump, I wonder if you're truly doing everything you can do to defeat Donald Trump.
I am going to do everything that I can to do to defeat Donald Trump. But a lot of that responsibility about winning the American people over to her side is going to rest with Secretary Clinton. Is she going to address the issues that we got something like 12, 13 million votes. And those people voted for me, I believe, because they said it is time to have a president prepared to have the guts to stand up to big money interests, to stand up to the greed of corporate America, to end these disastrous trade policies, to make certain that the wealthiest people and largest corporations start paying their fair share of taxes, to rebuild our infrastructure, to create health care to all people. So it's not just Bernie Sanders saying, oh, just vote for Hillary Clinton. It is Hillary Clinton standing up and saying, you know what? These are the things we need to do. And if she does the right thing, I am absolutely confident that the vast majority of my supporters will vote for her. And that is the process we are engaged in right now. We're working on the Democratic platform. We are talking to the Clinton campaign. And I hope very much that Secretary Clinton understands that not only is it good public policy, it is the right thing to do. It is good politics to begin to move in that direction.
Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, thanks so much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you on, sir.
Thank you very much, Dick.